Hey everybody. I just watched yesterday's video, and it was so loud, and I don't understand why it's so loud. Um, I don't know. Something changed in my OS, or something changed maybe in OBS, or maybe the software in my microphone changed. There's so many moving parts. It's almost impossible. I do have. I don't know if you've ever seen the OBS. I do show it from time to time, but this is the OBS screen, and so I'm trying to kind of keep an eye on this. I think what you don't want is for it to go into the red up there, and I think you want to kind of for it to hold. And I think like a lot of people who have production, like they do production like they do these sorts of things, like if they're pros, they have someone that is like literally watching all of this stuff in real time and modifying the audio appropriately. I think most content creators are probably like me, where they okay, see, so I guess that's why you have this little white thing here. So that, I guess, tells me that is a little too loud, so then I should maybe go down there. And it'd be nice if that reset at this point, so I could see if whatever Rhett does kind of throws us over the. Oh, so it did reset. So I guess I can watch that little thing and see if it ever. So that was nice, right? Because see, Rhett pushed us over the top into the red again. So let's just turn this down a little bit more. So okay, so as I wish the keyboard would let me sort of nudge it to the left, but and I guess as the number gets smaller. So, anyways, I guess I'll try that. Um, like I said, I don't know why it got loud. My absolute favorite show, I think that I watch on. Um, it's a YouTube channel, but it's also I typically watch it on Rumble because just because of the ads. There's just the ads in that, and I do think that I don't know how it works for someone like a bigger content producer, but I can tell you that if you see ads on this, that I'm not getting anything for that. Um, but and I really don't mind ads if they're like good. You know what I mean? Like if they're not just, I don't know, man. The ads that I get on YouTube are just like gross. They're really gross. They're like super like manipulative, that are sort of designed to make you feel really bad. Um, but so yeah, this guy, he does this show called My Lunch Break, and I like it because I think it is. He doesn't believe that people built, or I don't know. He has this belief system. He doesn't believe that the way we were told that older buildings were built, was the way they were built. And I feel like when I was in the 1980s, late 80s, early 90s, I remember I would deliver pizzas, and most of the pizza delivery drivers did not believe that we humans made computers. Like everyone thought that computers were made by aliens, but I was very familiar with how computers were created, and I was in electrical engineering major, and so I understood like how silicon works, and semiconductors, and the transistor, and all that. And then my dad had been an engineer, and so he understood how like the original computers were with like mercury liquid, and like little push pins and little cards that would go through, and the little push pin would push into the mercury, and that causes mercury can conduct electricity, and that would cause a little cog to turn. And those sort of the beginnings of computers. And then I had seen the mainframes and all those sorts of things, and the bugs actually being bugs, actual physical, actual little creatures that would run in there and get it, cause something to short and stuff like that, screw things up. So like I was very familiar with how that was made, and now it's interesting to watch people like not believing things that are around from previous people, because we don't understand how they did it. And I have a lot of anxiety that that's going to happen in coding. And so that's probably the main reason I do this, is that so in the future there's some documented ways of how people wrote code, because even now the way people think code's written is so far off from reality. But anyway, so now we are in the ground level of coding for the browser, right? So there's like all kinds of coding and all that, and we are in the browser, and we have we're starting to try to build like a framework to be able to draw things in ThreeJS, and with the hopes of at some point being able to include things like music and physics engine at the very least into this stuff. So what I as I've been meandering through this, and this is my second attempt. I tried to build something like this before, and it just got to the point where it was impossible for me to scale anymore. Like I could still use it; it was really cool, but I couldn't scale it the way I wanted to be able to scale it, and I did not foresee any possibility of ever being able to wedge a three 3D uh, a a physics engine and music concepts into that. So now I'm trying to redo this. I'm reloading, and I've through just sort of digging, I've kind of come up with one, two, three, four, five, six concepts that are seem to be three specific to three.js, and that's camera, geometry, material, mesh, render, and scene. And so my idea is that I'm going to have like how I can describe things like this, and then um, and there'll be a set of services that handle that, and then there'll be another set of services that handle interfacing directly with Three.js. So any weird complexities that live in Three.js get handled this in this service. So we have our services, and we have our ST services, and we have our three services. And any weird disconnects, complexities that live in Three.js will be handled in here, and any complexities that live in our stuff will be handled in here. And um, the thing is I did not the concept of weird stuff that I needed to handle in Three.js, um, that concept didn't exist in the first version. So in the first version, I assumed that Three.js was the most perfect ever software ever written. They have absolutely no mistakes on their part, and every single concept that they have is in directly a direct one-to-one fit with the concept that I have assumed that they had in their head. And then I found out that wasn't true. Actually, there are some disconnects, and then there's certain things that I want to be able to do. And I think the classic example of that was like when they have a camera and you move the camera, they don't recalculate what the camera is looking at. So when you create a camera, you can say, okay, I want this camera to look at this spot. If you don't say it looks at 0, 0, 0, and then let's say you slide the camera over by two things, well then they don't keep it looking at 0. And not only that, but they don't even calculate what it's looking at now, which, like I thought it was. I thought that it would continue to look at whatever it was supposed to look at, and then when I found out it didn't, thought, well, it'll know what it is. And when I found out it didn't, and then that caused me, and there's nothing wrong with that. That is not a criticism of Three.js, but it caused me to have to write a bunch of like shoehorned code, which then added all kinds of weird complexities that, as I did more changes, I didn't remember. And so now I'm trying to, with that sort of knowledge of what I learned the first time through, I'm trying to create a system which accommodates those sorts of changes in a way that's clear and easy to understand. So as we've been meandering through, we started at the top, and we have a renderer that is the top thing. And that is another thing. When I first started this second iteration, I thought the scene was at the top. but now I know that the renderer is at the top, and then the scene is that the render contains two things: a scene and a camera. And so the camera is kind of nice because it's sort of the end of the road. It doesn't really have anything below it, but the scene has a bunch of other stuff. So I've kind of come up with this scheme where on the my side, the ThreeJS side, um, I mean the Showtime side, I have a dictionary. So scene isn't there yet. So if we look at camera, I have a dictionary that sits at the top, and then I have ability to create a base camera that has these sort of hard coded values in it. And one of the things I do need to go in the future is create like another whole another service that has this sort of thing in there. So it's not like, so there's a centralized place to have these things, because some of these things, the different systems, it impacts the other things. So we can't have this sort of stuff just scattered throughout everything. But that's for a future date, unfortunately, because like there's just no linear way to get all this stuff done. So the next thing is to try to get the scene where we have camera and renderer. So renderer has the same sort of pattern on the Showtime side. It has a dictionary and all that. Now the one thing that on the three side that we eventually organically got to was that it also has a dictionary, but it really doesn't do much other than interact directly with three. Um, and that's the same thing in camera. It only interacts with three. So yeah, so the next step is to try to get down scene. Now try to get this all done for scene. Now this has been going so slow. It's just a slow grind. Um, so and then there's like kind of a there's sort of in this story that we've gone through twice now. This kind of this thing. There's sort of been a couple of things, and one is um, dealing with IDs. The other is getting a reference to the three into the ST side. Like this was something that is very recent, is this concept of like having a reference, a three reference over here. So basically there's this three, we have exposed two references to the exact same thing. And both of these are, both of these exist in uh, two places. One in the dictionary on the three side, and one in the as a reference on the ST side. I don't know if that's going to be the best way to do that, but that's kind of like where I'm leaning now. Um, and so, like from 30,000 feet, what we're trying to do right now is try to get this to show up in there, and we're trying to get it in a way that's really smart. And there's right now we have a ton of logic that's sitting in the app, which is what generates this. This is going to have a little bit less object and logic, and a little bit more that's sort of spread out into these services. But at the end, it's about logic. The goal is for it to not have nearly as much logic in it too. So we're gonna have to go through another round of kind of spreading out. So it's taking forever. Um, but you know that's what I think we need to do. Now I don't know. Like this is taking longer than I thought it would take, and I don't know. I've already kind of thrown out the idea that if on the end of March we're still sitting here dealing with this kind of just very very low level architectural sort of things, foundational pieces, we may have to reevaluate just like the whole concept of doing things this way. Because honestly, I could have flown through and built really cool stuff already, but we're still in this grinding mode, and I don't know if it's worth, if the what do the business people say, if the juice is worth the squeeze. So here we go. So now we're gonna go down scene, and there's really kind of three parallel things that need to be done. One is, and I believe both of these are empty. Yeah, they're completely empty. They just created yesterday. So one is like we need to kind of populate the scene, the three scene sides, so that it can create a base scene, and so that it can hold the dictionary, and so that it can return a scene based on the ID. But that ID gets created over in the ST side. So there's that, and then the last piece is we need to update the scene TypeScript so that the scene has a reference to 3. And then once we have that, we should be able to render this, so at least it'll be black. It won't have anything in it, but at least I think it'll be black. It'll render with a black background. So anyways, like what I just described kind of are 3 things that sort of ideally should happen in parallel, and I don't know exactly which one's the best one to do first. To me, my gut tells me the best one to do first is on the ST side, so I'm going to do that, and we're going to basically try to sort of emulate the way camera works. I believe the scene, I know the scene is a little bit more complex, but let's just start. So basically, we know we're going to need to get an ID. The ID is what everything is sort of based on. So let's go into our scene service, and let's just do this. Let's just talk through this. Okay, so the recyclable sequence service is just a generic service that everybody can use, and it basically just keeps track of the existing things. We need to inject it, and we need to inject it with a function called inject from core. And this name makes total sense. So this is, so when we have one of these blue things, we can just click this and it'll bring it in. It's always a good idea, just take a quick look, make sure that that's good. So now inject can come from, turns out inject is a very generic name, and it can come from other places. It quite often will try to come in from the testing libraries. So let's go ahead and do this, and we don't want it from here. And then excuse me, sorry about that. I need to remember how to mute this. I have a button there. Okay, sorry about that, everybody. So anyways, so now we have our sequence. Its inject is coming from core. That's all good. We have a good solid understanding. And let's go ahead and line that up. All right. So I feel like that's a win. Let's go back into camera. What does the camera do next? So camera creates a camera dictionary. Okay, I think that makes sense, but we want to do that first scene. So we're going to Alt and the left button, and it'll take us back here. We can take this, we can paste it, and we will name it for the scene dictionary. Dictionary, and now let's go back to our, I wonder if I hit Alt back if it takes us back to, yeah, it took us back to the camera. So now, oh no, it took us to the render, the camera of, where are we? Well, we're in ST camera. Okay, so now what we are doing is we are injecting our camera service on the 3 side. And you know what? It probably would have been easier. It won't take me long though, but it probably would have been easier if that had been 3 camera service, because I did get very confused on that. But anything that's on the ST side has ST in front of it, and then anything that just says camera, I just said, okay, by default everything is camera is 3. So we'll see. We'll see if in the future if that continues to be. So now Alt and the left. Let's see what's happening down there. So we're still, Red is not pushing us into red down there with her beeping. All right. So we do not want the camera service. What we want is the scene service. And so since it doesn't have anything in front of it, like I just said a second ago, and this is just more for me to sort of get everything right in my head. But since it doesn't have that, we will go here and then let it. All right. So now we have pulled that. I love you too. All right. So scene service, and then okay. So let's hit Alt left again, Alt right again. Okay. So now we've kind of done everything that was up there. We have a so we created a base scene, and then we said get our base camera, and then we said get camera by ID. So here's the first time that we really need to sort of dive down into the guts of this of this thing. And so we're gonna go back and we're just gonna have faith. I'm just gonna have faith. Gotta have faith that I did a good job before. I remember not having any bad failures. So this is definitely get base. Okay, so the first thing we need to do is get this alignment. Okay, we got that all lined up. And then get base scene. And then a scene, I don't think a base scene does not need to accept anything. I believe the scene is at the top level is very basic, if I remember correctly. And then I think in order to kind of so I don't think the scene has any values in it. And our only reference I think that we have of successfully creating a scene is this. And our scene has a bunch of stuff in it that this scene that we created, this STScene, has a bunch of stuff in it that we do not need. Alt left. So okay, so we have a bunch of stuff for the camera stuff. Yeah, I did get a little bit confused there. All right, so I'm just going to get rid of these constants. I know we're going to need a scene ID, so I'm going to leave that. Okay, so I know we need an ST animations, but for now we're not going to. Well, actually, we're not going to do any of the geometries. See, this scene has like meshes in it. Our meshes are going to be empty. We're not going to have any meshes for now. We will definitely need to have meshes. I mean, like, what is the point of all of this without meshes? But so I think right now what it's probably complaining about is it doesn't know what a scene is, and it doesn't seem to be able to find the scene. So we want to import STScene. Let's see if we can do this by hand. I think it's always this is a good opportunity to sort of pound into your brain what the architecture of your application is. So dot will tell you, and you hit like this, and then so I know it's not in camera renderer or scene, so I'm pretty sure it's not in any of those. I believe it's in interfaces, and let's see if in ST interfaces, and that's that. All right, so I found it there, and now it is upset here. Oh, I think I need to say const. Yeah. And it actually might have found everything for me otherwise, but it is nice. It's nice to like just mentally know that, okay, I understand where I am. All right, so now we know we need to get a scene ID, and that comes from our recyclable sequence. So I'm just going to do scene. So now we have our scene ID. Now, this is kind of where we hit the end of the road. We can't really do. We need to update. We can't go any further than this because we need to actually implement the ability to create a scene, a ThreeJS scene, which we have not. Our ThreeJS camera, our 3JS scene service is empty right now. So we need to go ahead and fix that. Now there was another. I think we can implement the other function though while we're here. And so basically we'll go back to our camera and we're just going to copy that. It probably would have been nice to have copied that. So that's probably something I'll try to squirrel away for when we do the, I think meshes will probably be next. It's going to be get scene by ID. And ST. And I think one of the things I've been doing is like forcing and it's probably going to be weird. This may feel weird to you that I'm like kind of forcing this to be a ST camera, and see already. And it is weird that I could know what a camera is, so it must have brought that in, and I do not want that to exist in here. But there is a very, very good chance that as this application grows, that there could be hundreds of lines of code that go in between here and here. And this strong typing could come in handy, and probably I think it's very, very unlikely that it's ever going to have a negative thing, and there's a very good chance that this forcing this strong typing may have a positive thing output. So anyways, we are at 28 minutes, so that's a good amount of time to spend on a video. I think the next step is feels comfortable. It feels right. The next step will be to go into the ThreeJS scene service and be able to create a scene. And it's going to be a empty scene with nothing in it, and that's how that's going to work. And then let's see. So this is get scene of ID. Yeah, create base scene. So yeah, how we end up fitting all the pieces together at the end is still sort of not obvious to me, but I feel like we're definitely see a path. So the next step will be to be able to emulate this, and we're going to have to go in here into the scene service to be able to emulate this. And so we'll get that and pull this back, and then the following step will be to just kind of start moving forward. I feel like the 3 service, we can probably basically do the same thing, like go into renderer, copy, paste everything, and update it so that it does what we want. And then we'll come back here, we'll get all the way through this stuff. And then at some point we'll have to go into the interface and make a 3 scene an optional object or attribute, and then once that's done, we can go into our viz component and generate our scene. And actually, I think the next, because I don't generate a camera here, so I think when we generate a base renderer, yeah, we'll have to come in to generate a base renderer, and instead of using this, do something along these lines. Then and then this will be seen, and then I think that the scene will have, yeah, so render. Oh, okay. So we have our render ID. We have our three renderer. We have our STScene. Okay, yes, and our STScene has a reference to the three scene, and so our ST camera. I'm sorry, our ST camera has a reference to the three camera. So if we wanted to, for some reason, update the camera, we can. We have access to it from this side, and then we'll do that same concept with the scene, and then I think in the viz is where we will do the render. Oh, and I forgot about this. We're gonna need to have this as a optional on the renderer. Um, yeah, so when we circle back around, we may be like, oh man, we need to update the renderer, and then I think here, at least for now, it'll be this line of code where since we'll have access to the scene, we can say render, because at this point we will have access to the scene and the camera, and that I guess will exist in ST. Yeah, an ST renderer service will create a function, and then it kind of seems like we need to create a function to set the size in there. Like we probably need to move all of this kind of stuff out of there, um, out of, instead of doing it directly on the renderer. Like we probably shouldn't even have access to this renderer. We should probably go through the ST renderer to do anything on that. So we're going to want to be able to like comment that out, and then everything still work. Um, so yeah, so that's where we're headed. It is a very straight, common, steady line. I don't think anything is like we're so far we haven't had to do anything surprising. Everything's been very clear as we've done code. Everything has made sense and it's been clear and it's been straight. So I think that's a good sign. But tomorrow will be all about creating the three scene. And I do think it's even easier to talk about, right? Like the words all make sense. Like we're creating like a foundation for being able to talk about these things in a way that makes sense. Anyways, happy coding, everybody. Bye.